are on to guest number 2 for Breakfast with TT, Ash Soltani Stone, the director of Rez Metal. And full disclosure, I got to spend some time with Ash last evening. We probably started this conversation last night. It's an amazing film. It will be screening tonight at the Woodward at 9:30. I'm going to follow and let everybody know this again too, but for those of you who are interested in this film, you're not only getting the film Rez Nation at 9:30, but the band Don't Konform, who's the subject of the film. They are here and they will be performing after that screening tonight at the Woodward. So if you're up for staying up a little later and having a good time, this is definitely the show for you. So I'm going to start. Ash, I told you I thought about this after we kind of hung out and had a great conversation last night. I need to start with the film, so I'll do that kind of stuff off the bat. So first question is really what was it for you that kind of triggered the idea that, okay, there's a story here that I want to tell?
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thanks for being here. I think what really inspired me about the story was the fact that it really defies the stereotypes and the narrative and the stories that we associate with Native American films. I think a lot of times, one of my problems as a filmmaker when I'm watching a film that deals with minority, I mean, in this case, Native Americans, there's a lot of focus on trauma and reminding of those trauma, which is very important from the historical standpoint. But what really stood up about this subject matter was that how those trauma are put into art and music as a very good way to deal with those issues in a very uplifting and inspiring way. And I think that's something that stood out for me. Another thing about this subject matter is, again, defying the stereotypes in a very subtle way. For example, when it comes to the music, especially Native American music, we all, most of us associate with a certain type of music, such as powwow music, the flute, that kind of music. And I think, the fact that when you're putting heavy metal music, which is like a very so-called Western type of music, with a traditional community such as Navajo Nation, you put them together, creates this very interesting and refreshing synergy. And that's something that was very refreshing and unique for me. And the fact that a lot of people don't know about that scene on the Navajo reservation, that's something that was very appealing to me as a filmmaker, because I'm always looking for that kind of stories that defies the stereotypes and certain narratives that we are familiar to.
All right, because last night when we spoke, one of the things that you said that stuck with me is you said you wanted to make a rock and roll movie.
Absolutely, that's a very good.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I think one of the things that this is my second film that I made about Native American films. I made another film about Western Shoshone about 20 years, 18 years ago, 19 years ago, when I was in grad school. It was a short film, very successful film, but I took an activist position as a filmmaker when I made that film. And despite its success and opening a lot of doors for me, I really have a hard time to connect with that film, because as a filmmaker, I think subtlety is something that gives extension to the life of your film and makes it appealing in 10 years, 15 years from now. And I think that's something that I want to bring to that documentary. So from the get-go, when I was talking to Kyle and other people involved, I told them I'm not going to make a film about the hardship and etc. I want to make a rock and roll film that happened to take place on the Navajo reservation. A lot of other, if you look at a lot of rock and roll film or music documentary, usually the geography, it's an important part of that. Grunge in Seattle, for example. And in this case, I want to make a rock and roll film about the scene on the Navajo reservation. So I think that's something I try to do in this film. I hope it comes across when you're watching this film.
So Really quick before we bring Kyle on, I want to find out from you because I did not get to ask you this last night, and you've given us some hints about your background as a filmmaker. Give us a little more information about that. But while you're doing it, I'm also curious, kind of like with the last question about favorite films. Like, yeah, what titles or what style of films have inspired you along the way?
Sure. A little bit of my background. I was born in Iran, and I moved to United States. I migrated to United States in the 90s, like mid 90s. And so I went to schools. I went to University of Utah, which because of the Sundance Film Festival, and so I got my grad degree from the U. And I'm also in academia. I'm a professor of film. And so both my day job and my creative work, it's related to film. So I've been, this is my third feature-length documentary, and also I had both narrative and short documentaries before that. Yeah, I'm here. What was the second part of it? My favorite film?
Yeah, some of your influences.
Well, I mean, I think, there's lots of them, but there's several films that I wouldn't say that I'm gonna go watch them all the time, but there are the film that really influenced me as a filmmaker. Definitely, I can talk about anything with Orson Welles, which it's really inspired me to become a filmmaker. In regard of documentary, I'm a big fan of Maisels brothers, like Grey Gardens, A Salesman, and I think that's something really by watching their films, I really learned how to become more and more subtle as a filmmaker, and try to deliver the message without being very overt and to your face, because I just feel like subtlety it's something that it's very important, and I think I see more filmmakers who become more skilled and seasoned become more and more subtle, and I think that's something I found in their works, and I found it very interesting in their journey, and that's something that I'd like to apply in my own work.